Well, welcome to the Brookside Banter. My name is Lucas, and this is the Banter. We are so excited that you are here. You can obviously, if you're watching online with us live right now, you can see that, or if you're watching the video later on, you can see that I am not in the same place, and Pastor Greg is joining us from Brookside. Now, I've had to self-isolate because my one son has some symptoms of, like, he's just got a little cold, but it kind of means that I've got to stay at home until we get a negative result back from the testing center. So all of that to say, I am so excited that technology has allowed us to get together and meet together, even though it's sometimes difficult. And if you look just right over here on the video, my other son is just eating a juice box. So I am joined here with Greg McRobbie, the lead pastor of Brookside Baptist Church, and so excited that you're here with us, Greg. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing amazing. What comes to mind is the imagery of a duck, like nicely paddling, like just floating along the top of the river, and you look underneath, and the feet are going.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what's going on right now. The image that you're seeing of me is coming from my laptop, which is sitting on top of a paint can, on top of a table, and it's a little bit of an interesting experience for us both. But
that's right.
Like you say, so glad that technology came through and is allowing us to do this. So it's great to be able to be with
better than nothing
with our folks that are watching.
That's right. And if you're joining us in the podcast afterward, we're so thankful that you're able to tune in. And maybe this conversation is something you listen to when you're on your treadmill or in your commute. Do people even commute these days? Not too much, I guess.
Well, commuting down to the coffee pot downstairs. That's the commute. You just walk real slow.
Yeah. In the summertime, I have my office set up in the garage, and I thought that I could make it all the way through winter, but it is cold out there. The space heater only lasted for a few weeks, and then it was way too cold.
Yep.
So this week is really cool. I'm actually, first of all, really thankful that we're able to do this together, even though we're not in the same room. Like, we could have been doing this all along like this. It's kind of cool.
There you go.
But this week we're continuing on our kind of banter, our kind of questions, diving deep into some questions that people have sent in about the teaching content that we have on Sunday mornings, and we're in a series called Heavenly, and it's all about like maybe some different aspects of heaven that we don't like talk about. So often we talk about like the high level, like kind of things that are less like solid, but these days we've been really looking at some truths that are about the reality of heaven. And so we have some great questions that were sent in. So because we're not live in person, it's a little bit more difficult to have the banter. But Greg, why don't you just kind of address some of those questions, and I'll come back in closer to the end of the show. So again, thanks for tuning in, and take it away, Greg.
Sure thing. Glad to be able to do that. This question, or at least this topic on the intermediate heaven, has really sparked a lot of interest, a lot of conversation, a lot of questions. When we think about the intermediate heaven, what we're talking about is, what is heaven like right now? In the Bible, it talks about the fact that when Jesus returns sometime in the future, there will be a new heaven and a new earth and heaven kind of brought back together again, reunited in a very beautiful and special way that those of us who know Jesus, we're going to be able to enjoy for the rest of eternity. But the place that we're going right now, if we were to die today, if I was to get hit by a truck on the way home, I would be going to what is called the intermediate heaven, or the intermediate state. And so we looked at that a little bit on Sunday. We're going to answer a couple of questions that arose out of the teaching on Sunday. But if you want to get a little bit more, go back and watch that. And if you have more, just fire other questions off. We'd love to hear them, love to be able to interact on that. Actually, a great place to do that is in your life group. And if you're not in a life group yet, that's something be thinking about. Be thinking about why I should be considering getting into a life group. And we'll chat on that a little bit before we wrap up. But one of the questions that came in is kind of, where is this heaven? Where is heaven? Is it, what if you watch some shows on TV, then maybe it's on the other side, the dark side of the moon, or maybe it's out in another galaxy somewhere. Is heaven somehow spatially, dimensionally connected? Can we kind of go there if we travel far enough and fast enough? And from what the Bible teaches us, the answer is no. It's not connected to our dimension. It's not connected to our 3D time continuum that we are experiencing here. It's been separated. God has kind of divided it. If you look back in Genesis, you see God doing that. Back when Earth was first formed, it was connected to the earth, or that the earth was connected to heaven. Heaven and earth were together. God walked with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eve, kind of imagery of heaven on earth. And when they fell, when they disobeyed God, God removed them from the garden and basically removed the garden from earth so that they can't go back there, so that they can't be a part of that experience in their sinful state. Something has to change in order for them to regain entrance. And that's why Jesus came, and that's why we have hope today, because Jesus came in part to restore us back to the way God had originally intended things. So where is the intermediate heaven? It's in a different dimension from ours. And that's a handy thing to kind of keep in mind. There's actually kind of a popular idea out there today that is gaining a lot of traction just because it's in some of the big blockbuster movies that are out there right now. The whole concept of a multiverse. If you watch Flash, or if you watch any of the Spider-Man movies, or if you watch a lot of the MCU, there's all this kind of talk of kind of a multiverse. And that the idea of the multiverse is there's an infinite number of universes, all slightly different from ours, but they're all they're not interconnected unless you've got the right tech to jump from one to the other. And there's doppelgangers on each planet that are carbon copies almost of the person on all these other universes. That's kind of an idea that's floating around out there, and people are like, when you've got a vacuum, what goes in? Whatever you hear, right? So there's a lot of people who are kind of thinking, oh, maybe this is what it is. And that's not a good model to understand heaven, our current heaven. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. One of the other questions that came up, very closely related, was, are there dead people around us? The old movie, what was it? The Sixth Sense. I see dead people. Is that legit? Is that something we should expect? Ricky Gervais in Ghost Story has a near-death experience, and all of a sudden he can see dead people walking around. Is that true? Is that biblically accurate? And the answer to that is no, it's not. That's not what we see in Scripture. What we see is people, when they die, they are basically removed from heaven, from earth, taken to heaven, where they remain. There are a few examples in the Bible, and we can chat about those a little bit if we wanted to. But there's a few examples like Moses and Elijah, who are brought to meet with Jesus at the Transfiguration in the Gospels. They're dead, they're in heaven, they are brought back alive, and Jesus talks with them, and Peter and James and John, they see this and they're blown away by what they see. But that's not kind of a common occurrence. What is more common, what is more regular in Scripture is the fact that there are angels, both faithful angels and fallen angels, who do have interaction with our world and with people. So if somebody was to ask me, what about all that paranormal stuff, people, ghost stories and all that kind of thing, is that legit? I'd say I don't think so. I'd say that if there was something that was actually taking place, it was most likely angelic interaction with our world, with our plane, whether that is an angel as we would describe them or a demon as we would describe them. Both are capable of connecting with our world and influencing us here and now. So those are some of the things that I'd say in response to that. There was another question that came in, and that was, well, why do we need a new earth anyway? Or why do we need a new heaven anyway? Well, did God kind of mess up? Isn't heaven right now perfect? What's the deal? And the answer to the question is, heaven perfect? Yeah, but it's not complete the way God originally designed it. So there is, and just like we talked about on Sunday, for people that are there, when I die and I go to heaven, between the moment I die and the moment that Jesus returns, I'm going to be like, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. But there's going to be this sense of anticipation that this is great, but there's even more to come. And that is the reality that we find described for us in the Bible. Isn't heaven perfect? Yes, it is. But that doesn't mean that it cannot be expanded in some way. And reuniting heaven and earth as God describes it is part of his plan. And for that question, well, why is that needed? That one you may have to ask God. That's the way he planned things. That's the way he set it up. And not everything that he does has a simple, straightforward answer that we can say, oh, that's why. Maybe afterwards we'll have a better answer. There's a lot of things about kind of the process of getting to the end that I'm not really clear about. I've got ideas about kind of what's going to happen, end times, all that kind of thing. But I don't hold those too tightly because I know that I may be wrong on some of those things. Some of them, it's just interpretation, it's guesswork, educated guesswork, hopefully, spirit-led, hopefully, guesswork. But some of those things I will tell you with absolute certainty after it happens. So that's kind of where it sits on that. And that's really one of those things. Why does heaven need to be replaced? That was one of the questions as well. It has to, because God set it up that way. He, in his infinite wisdom, he chose to have things arranged in such a way that there would be an intermediate state that would one day lead to our final consummation, our final experience of the complete state of life in the renewed heaven, renewed earth together. And I don't think there's going to be any point along the process where we're going to be sitting there going, this kind of sucks. We're going to be blown away. And that, to me, is one of the great things I'm looking forward to. I don't care how long I'm in this intermediate state before we get to the final thing. I'm going to enjoy each and every moment of it. And I hope you do too. I hope that's where your heart and your mind is.
One of the things that comes to mind is that when you're like waiting for a birthday party, for example.
I'm not hearing you.
Oh no.
I hope everybody else is.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
So one of the things that I think is really, really neat about this concept of waiting is, and having even an intermediate heaven. Do I need to be much louder?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. That's better.
Hey. Awesome.
I was just thinking about how waiting together is so much better than waiting alone. Like, we in our life, even now, we do a lot of waiting. But when I'm just waiting, for my wife to come home at night or something when she's working, like, I just kind of twiddle my thumbs and I'm just kind of like, there's even a sense of anxiety to it. But if you've ever like been part of the surprise party and you're kind of with other people waiting for the guest of honor to come, there's this awesome sense of eagerness, and you're kind of like, you just can't wait for it to all happen. And I wonder if part of that waiting, even for the new heaven, in this place of kind of now and not yet, is like this eager excitement that you have together as a community of people, which is perfect and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and yet it's gonna get even better, and that's such a neat picture.
Totally. What comes to mind, and it's something that we experienced together with our families, is when we went on a cruise, and like just awesome time on the cruise boat and everything else. But there were destinations that we were going to. We were going to wherever it was, Jamaica or whatever.
Nassau. We did not
Nassau, Bahamas.
We did Nassau. Yep.
Places that are totally blowing
so good. Yeah.
my mind right now. But like we weren't sitting on the boat going, "This is such a drag." Like,
no, and in fact, didn't we, because for those of you who are brand new, Greg's my father-in-law, and we missed one of our flights, remember? Because of like, what was it even for? Weather or something, or we just missed it? Anyway, but even that, we had to wait. Yeah, we had to wait all the way overnight, and because we were together, it was actually not bad. It was fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Although you were in a wheelchair because your gout got really, really bad that week.
Yeah, that part was slightly less than enjoyable. That's something I'm not going to miss in heaven, is gout or anything else. It's going to be like party on in the greatest possible way. And that's right. That's so cool. Yeah.
So part of this whole thing, like even waiting together, we do that even now here on earth, like doing life as people who are spiritual journeys all together, kind of eagerly anticipating and growing deeper in our faith and learning together about these spiritual things, all in the context of community. And we at Brookside, we have some new things coming up. In fact, on March 9th, we have a new series. It's a 3-week it'll be a Zoom call, I'm assuming, where you jump on a Zoom call and learn all about life groups here at Brookside. So that's starting March 9th. And for more information, go to mybrookside.church/life groups and just let us know that you're interested in our March 9th Exploring Life Groups opportunity. And we're so excited because we know that sometimes getting into a small group ministry or community groups or life groups, like it can be kind of intimidating and you're not really sure what to expect, but we just want to answer all those questions and give you a really clear picture of what life groups are like here at Brookside. And especially these days with all the social distancing and everything, we just really believe that it's so important to have community, even if it's virtual, even if it's a Zoom call. It's better than nothing, and we just love these. So if you're interested in learning more about those, again, mybrookside.church/life groups, and we would love to get you connected into that Exploring Life Group opportunity at Brookside.
Something I was thinking about that is sometimes, like, I think there's a good chunk of people who would hear what you're saying, Lucas, and say, "Well, I'm not really nervous about it. I'm not anxious. I just don't. I'm busy. I don't really see the point. You know, I've got lots of friends already, and why should I bother getting into a life group?" What would you say to somebody who said that?
Well, I think the very first thing that comes to mind is that it's intentional. So in all my relationships in my life, I can kind of like pick and choose what I share and how I share it, and you kind of orchestrate your own relationships. So a lot of times you're at work or at school, and those relationships are just sort of all you can talk about work your whole life. In fact, I was watching Parks and Recreation, and one of the quotes Ron Swanson talks about, he's like, "I once had a best friend for 3 years. I didn't even know his name." And I just think that is so true. Like sometimes we go through our whole lives, we don't know anything about each other. Sometimes it's our own family members, and you barely get to know them. You barely get to all the ups and downs in life, and you just kind of chit chat and banter on, but there's no depth to it. And so my favorite thing about life groups is that there's actual depth, kind of whether you like it or not. Like we all know we want it and need it, but it's uncomfortable and it makes you uncomfortable, and that's a good thing. I think that's a really good thing sometimes. For sure. What about you? What's your kind of take on that? Like, what is different about a life group than anything else?
Well, to me, it's kind of very similar. And the picture that comes to my mind is the difference between a fan watching a whatever sporting event, whether it's hockey or football, or being somebody on the team. One, you're kind of close to the action and you can root for them and cheer, but you're not really committed. You're not, it's not up to you. You're not, there, and it's, yeah, you kind of take it or leave it. It doesn't really matter. But if you're a player on the field, you're sweating, you're struggling, yeah, and you're depending on other people and they're depending on you and all that kind of thing. And that's actually the picture that Jesus says our life in him ought to be like. We're on the team. We're not watching the team. We're not just kind of eating popcorn and kind of enjoying the show. We are front center, and life groups is one of the best places where you can connect with people and start to live it out in a way that you can't anywhere else. A lot of people, and I hear this a lot, it's like, man, my spiritual life, it kind of sucks. It's boring. I don't really, I don't really get it. It's like, well, are you in a group? Well, no. Well, maybe that's one of the reasons. Is what I would say.
Yep. And you guys, whoever's listening to this, whether you're on the podcast or on the video, and we're so thankful that you joined with us. Max was also great, really grateful. You're going to hear us talk about this a lot because that's really the point of even this is like, we just want to really exemplify and show you guys like there's a better way to do life. And that better way is really with your friends and with some, in a life group or in some sort of small group experience. So yeah, I can't wait to do this again next week. Hopefully we get Grayson's, my one son, Grayson, if you were just joining us later, he had to go and get a COVID test because he has like a sniffly nose, which is really just because he's in school and that germs go around. But hopefully he's just fine. And I hope that we can be back together in person next week, Greg and I. And we thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks, Max. And we will see you all next week.
That's the outgoing music.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.
Okay. Bye, everybody.